Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about how to best navigate the Christmas period. So this is going to be a challenging time and a time where logistics aren't going to be completely favorable. So just going to address this to see what the potential opportunities are and the potential sort of banana peels are as to what can go wrong during Christmas and the festive period, and just work out a sort of a almost like a philosophical plan of how to approach this period, and then a tactical a set of tactics as to how to make the best out of the situation. So if there's any questions as we go through, then just send them through in the comments. But I have a set of questions ready that have come through. So let's start there. So the first question is, how detrimental would taking Christmas off be? So this is one of those things where I'm going to sort of invite you to think about what all of these answers mean to you, rather than give you a sort of a prescriptive way to deal with Christmas. Some of these answers will take a little bit of reflection and we'll go from there. So in terms of how detrimental Christmas is actually going to be, it depends on your trajectory. It depends where you are in relation to where you want to be, and it depends on how long you think that trajectory is going to take as well. So what I mean from that, or by that, is that if you already have the level of fitness, muscularity, habit framework, body fat, and that on where you want to be, and you're already there, then taking a few days off over Christmas isn't going to be too detrimental at all, because you already have the habit set that you needed and have cultivated to get you where you want to be physically. So it's just going to be a few days off, and you can easily jump back on that train and be right back where you want to be. But if you're quite far away from where you'd ultimately like to be, then any deviation away from the plan that's getting you there, or from the trajectory towards your goals, is a step backwards, potentially a potential banana peel. So you'll have to think about the level of which you're willing to take a deviation from your goals, and you'll have to come to that conclusion based on a true understanding of where you are into relation to them at the moment. So it also depends on what you mean by taking Christmas off, or what we mean by this question. So if you're just going to take the day of Christmas off, ultimately that's not going to do too much harm. That's just a day away from your training program. It's easily recoverable. But if we're talking about now at the end of November until January 1st, which is the festive period, a lot can go wrong over the course of that time. That's enough time for the law of entropy to set in. So there's enough time to lose ground. Certainly there's enough time to unpack a little bit, or sort of unravel your habit set. So if you've worked hard to establish your habit set, perhaps taking that period of time off isn't going to be advantageous. So that's something to think about. Where are you in relation to your goal? And what do we mean by taking Christmas off? Is it just the day itself, or are we taking a deviation from this point on 4, 5, 6 weeks? Because that's significant. So that would be something to reflect on. And then the other answer to this question, this is what I mean about throwing the questions back a little bit, is what do we mean by off? Do we mean from now on, we're just not going to train at all? We're going to have no activity, or we're not going to do any sort of meal planning or have any healthy meals? Because that's a very big thing. That's a massive departure from controlling all of your meals and having a regular training practice, and also having habit sets that keep you where you want to be. So if you're going to come completely off the rails for the next 4 or 5 weeks, that could be detrimental. So that's another thing to consider. I would recommend definitely not doing that. You always want to maintain and establish and then maintain a fallback position, a position where you keep ticking over, and as long as you keep those basic level of habits in place, you don't move too far backwards. The other thing, which is getting a little bit more towards the personal development on the psychological side, is finding out, or considering, and really being honest about what role fitness and your current fitness regime plays in your life. I mean, is exercise purely a vehicle to look better? Is what you're doing on any concerted training program just an effort? And I say just, I'm not undermining that. It's just a question to ask yourself. Is it purely an aesthetic endeavor? Is it, I'm going to go from A to B. If I do these workouts, I'll look different at the end. That's one thing. So if taking a little bit of a deviation from that might not be too detrimental. You can just make that back up. But if you're using health and fitness to turn things around, to come out of a challenging period, or to work on an all-around healthier lifestyle, then it might be quite detrimental to take a big deviation from your current regime. So I would recommend against that. If, for example, regular exercise, regular steady state cardio, by which I mean just getting out for a walk, regular movement practice, if those things represent for you a large part of how you maintain your health, because there's nothing in place aside from that, then that's a big thing. I wouldn't run the risk necessarily of unpacking and unraveling all of those habits. If exercise plays a big part in your regulation of mental health, if it stops you from feelings of depression, if it helps curtail feelings of anxiety, then just taking weeks off when you've worked very hard to get to a position where perhaps you've started to minimize some of those things happening to you, then again, do you want to unravel that right now? Is that in your best interest, just for the comforts or potential comforts of Christmas? The other thing would be digestion. If you've been suffering from things like IBS, histamine intolerance, SIBO, those kind of things, or just regular bloating or anything to do with discomfort from a digestion perspective, and you've worked really hard to get that back to equilibrium, or you've seen a quality in life increase by just being out of pain, then taking 3, 4, 5 weeks of poor nutrition or really going down that road too heavily, is it the best choice? Because you're going to be potentially going to be back to discomfort and pain. So the quality of life might go down. And these, it sounds like an extreme thing to say, but if you've experienced digestive discomfort, you'll know the difference it makes to be free from it once you've had it. Same thing with mobility work. If you in theory, you're probably going to have to still work, and those that work on a laptop or a computer, still going to be in those positions, maintaining those kind of postures. So if you lose your exercise practice, if you lose your activity, if you lose your mobility practice, are you then going to be inviting tension in the neck, the back, the hips, those kind of things back in? So it's not to say that you have to run full stream ahead at a fitness goal during Christmas, but it's to say, how far from your established threshold of things that keep you feeling well and energized do you want to deviate from just because it's Christmas? Is that actually in your best interest? And is the comfort that you might experience at Christmas worth the potential discomfort of unraveling or unwinding some of that good work you've done? Again, these are questions to ask yourself. I'm not making any recommendations. It's just a case of reflection. Okay, so on to the next question, which is going to kind of go down the same lines a little bit, is what happens if I can't control my routine? So for the vast majority of people, to one extent or another, that will be the case. There'll be something that you can't control over Christmas. Maybe you're eating with people, like friends, family, those kind of things, and they're going to bring their nutrition. They're going to bring the way they do Christmas. Or maybe the gyms will be closed for a certain amount of time. So if you work out in a gym, that's going to be the deal. If you're doing a lot of socializing, maybe that's going to impede on the time that you would usually, go to the gym or do your steady state cardio or mobility or whatever your health and fitness regime would be. It might be oppressive weather, depending on where you are in the world. Could be really cold, could be frozen on the floor, not necessarily going to be able to go out for a run or cycling, for example. So there will be things that you can't control. So let's have a look at how we might deal with that. First, I would say from almost a philosophical point of view, you want to really, health and fitness aside, or including health and fitness, but anything in life really, you want to be working on your internal locus of control. So I would say, and this is a question I'll ask myself, and perhaps you'll ask yourself, are you going to accept responsibility for the extent to which your goal or set of habits is interrupted during Christmas? Or will you be influenced or impeded by logistics, other people, or pure convention? And that's a serious question, and something to meditate on now before those things happen, because you can make that determination now, and you'll then have a strategy and a plan for the extent to which you're going to move away from a training program or a set of habits. On a long enough timeline, if you have an external locus of control, somebody else, something else, or some other uncontrollable variable will result in a deviation from your best interest or your familiar habit set. So developing an internal locus of control is a lifelong endeavor, and worth having as a constant consideration. Am I responsible? Am I in control of the things that are in my best interest, or am I letting convention, other people, logistics get in the way of that? So that's something to constantly think about and make a decision on. Then we might touch on a little bit of stoicism almost. So we would say, when you can't control all of the variables, what do you do in that scenario? And that is going to happen, like we said at the beginning, that's going to happen to some extent over Christmas. Some things are going to be uncontrollable. So if we take a stoic approach to this, when you can't control all of the variables, you double down on the things you can control. So food logistics is going to be tougher. You might be eating with people. Okay, so move more. So we need to make sure that if we can't control the nutrition side of things, then we double down on the exercise side of things. Not to mean over exercising, but just making sure that we're diligent on the way we approach exercise, because one thing has been taken away. So we double down on the thing we can control. Whenever there's one thing you can't control, you look for the things you can control. And that's how you can sort of maintain a little bit of almost sanity, because you can, when you're in control of the way you're living your life, that's quite empowering. And when you're not, it can be quite frightening or anxiety inducing. So gyms will be closed for a certain amount of time. So there's only going to be perhaps a certain amount of workouts you can get in, or your logistics are going to mean that there's only so many workouts you can carry out. So what is the highest yield exercise during this period? I would say strength training. So make sure you get your strength training in, because you can, that's really the exercise that you would consider, keeping the wolves from the door, because it's going to protect your metabolism. For one, it's protecting your muscle mass. It's much harder to regain lost muscle mass than it is to burn a little bit more body fat. You can always up the cardio. You can always do some Tabata workouts, more steady state cardio, but you've worked really hard for your muscle mass. So don't allow this 3, 4, 5 week period to be a period in which you don't continue to send the signals to your body that you want to maintain your muscle mass. It was hard earned, and can be lost. So, like we said at the beginning, just not exercising for a few days over Christmas isn't going to completely destroy your physique and destroy your healthy lifestyle. But if we're looking at it from a sort of a more of a macro sense, and we've got 3 or 4 or 5 week period, prioritize the strength training, because sending the signals to keep your muscle, I think, is a higher priority than continuing to burn body fat because you've worked hard for the muscle. The biggest mistake I would really sort of warn against is what you might consider the sort of the house of cards effect. And Christmas aside, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make in health and fitness. And that is that when one thing goes wrong, they allow it to lead to everything unraveling. So if you can't get to the gym, what would you do? Okay, so you can't get to the gym, let's double down on the nutrition. If we're keeping the nutrition tight, let's do that. And then we can do the steady state cardio. Maybe we can work out at home. The worst thing to do would be to say, or to reason that, okay, I can't get to the gym, so I'm just going to let my whole health and fitness regime unravel, because that's when you have a rapid sort of decline, because you're not doing anything forward facing or anything taking you to your goals, and everything unfolds. Same thing the other way around. So if you can't get your workouts in, then you double down on nutrition. If you were to get injured, for example, then you double down on great nutrition. If you're rendered inactive for a given amount of time on a particular type of exercise, or just the gym shut, or you can't exercise, you get snowed in or anything like that, then you would double down on great nutrition, because you control the things you can control and you double down on the things you can control. That's really how you can maintain progress, even when the conditions aren't ideal. Then I would say that the real magic in health and fitness, and I say this a lot, but it's consistency. It's small efforts, 100% the way to win the health and fitness battle. So just even if things aren't controllable during Christmas, what can you do? If workouts need to be shortened, then workouts are shortened. If they need to be done at home, then they're done at home. If all you can do is a walk, then you get the walk. If all you can do is your intermittent fast, then you do the intermittent fast. Whatever you can control, try to stay consistent with every habit you can be, because that's how the battle is won. The battle is never won with short-term over-exercise or restrictive dieting, because it's unsustainable. So look at it the way, we don't have to live like this, but look at what we can learn from athletes, what we can learn from bodybuilders. They're consistent. They get their workouts in, even when the situation isn't ideal. The only time they don't get their workouts in really is to rest. We don't have to live like a bodybuilder or an athlete, but they are clearly showing us some methodology. It's the consistent efforts that really pay the dividends. Marginal gains. Again, we don't have to live like an athlete, but we can learn from them. So there's also a difference between your workouts and basic levels of activity. So you might not be able to, say your gym closes or you're going somewhere where you're just not going to have access to a gym. That's one thing, but that doesn't mean that you can't do your steady state cardio, can't get out for a walk each day, can't do a short mobility practice, some yoga practice, because there's a difference between the basic level of habits and just activity that the human body needs to be out of pain and full of energy, and any one concerted exercise goal. Okay, so the next question is, why can't I just pick up again on January 1st? And I would say, I'm not telling you what way to go. You can, if you want to, you could stop now and you could pick up again on January 1st. But again, we're talking about that spiral, that house of cards effect, because what can happen if you were to say, okay, from now, it's right now as we record, it's the end of November. If we don't want to do anything until the 1st of January, what happens to the body? It doesn't go into stasis, unfortunately. So if you've worked really hard in the months running up to November or December, and then you say, okay, I'm going to take 5 weeks off, then we're going to run into that law of entropy. Sorry. So if you're only taking a few days off over Christmas, then again, it's not going to be completely detrimental unless you know yourself. And this is why I'm continuing to throw the question back. If you know yourself and you know that regular exercise is a big part of your mental health, consistency is a big part of your mental health, and perhaps there's an addictive tendency or anything like that, and you know that things can spiral out of control, then it's not in your best interest to seek the comfort of Christmas. It's in your best interest to stay as consistent as possible. It's a consideration. But for the main part, you just don't want to see a spiral of negative effects. You don't want to stop sending the signals to your body about keeping muscle and protecting your metabolism. So try not to allow that spiral to take place. You could start again on the 1st of January, but I would really strongly, the one thing I will recommend is that you don't go to zero. Never go to zero, because at zero, that's when all of the sort of the more catastrophic effects happen, because there's nothing pushing you forward. Okay, so to sort of unplug that, or sort of play that spiral out a little bit further, if that is the thing that we do, and we just allow things to go to absolute zero and just a complete baseline, then what happens on January 1st? You're going to be a little bit regretful. You're going to feel like perhaps you've put on body fat, perhaps you've lost muscle. So from a body composition standpoint, composition has been negatively impacted. Digestion might not be great if you've been eating the wrong foods. Energy might not be great if you've been eating the wrong foods. All of those kind of things. Body a little bit stiff, a little bit painful. We've all done it. We've all reached January 1st and felt like that. So at that point, it's just human nature to say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to do something pretty serious to make up ground here. And then that's where the cycle starts. That's where that negative cycle starts. And it's like, okay, so what would be the best thing I could do now? Because I've just had a terrible 5 weeks. I'm going to go on a diet. And a diet is going to be, by definition, restrictive, short term. And then you can say, I'm going to over-exercise. I'm going to run every day. I'm going to burn out. It's not going to be sustainable. Whereas we could make a decision right now together here and say, you know what? I'm not going to let it go to zero. I don't have to be as diligent as I have been in the 3 months running up to this, but I'm not going to let it go to zero. I'm going to get my walk in every day. I'm going to get a workout in a couple of times a week. And, I'm going to do my intermittent fast, or I'm going to eat clean, or those kind of things. And then you don't arrive in January 1st thinking that you have to make up ground. So you can decide right now how you feel on January 1st. That's why I keep throwing the questions back, because that is a personal decision and it'll be different for everyone. Okay, so this is where we get into a little bit more of the tactical side of things. So the period itself, the festive period, I would say if you are doing an intermittent fasting practice, then that's one of your biggest allies, because that's gonna having that growth hormone active for longer is going to be helping you with the war against body fat anyway. So, but it's also structurally and behaviorally going to make sure that you're not reaching for the wrong things in the morning. So if there's going to be leftovers and treats around, at least you're protecting or constricting the amount of time that you could possibly indulge in those, which is a win. So if you're not having those in the morning, that's a win, because they're probably going to be laying around anyway. And then I would say that when you have your major meals throughout this period, that focus on getting your proteins in, make sure that you get your protein in, and then so this is sort of tactically how you eat. So there's going to be things on the plate, right? And there's going to be seconds available, those kind of things. What you want to do is structure the way you eat to focus on the protein source first and focus also on the vegetable intake, so that you're eating a voluminous meal before you turn to what might be the higher glycemic index carbohydrates, or beyond that, then into the treats and those kind of things. Not to say you can't have them, but by making sure that you feel full before you turn your attention to those, it's just a tactical way to sort of minimize the amount you have, so you can satisfy the curiosity, but you're not going to be using them to quell any hunger, because you're going to be satisfied from the meal, because you've prioritized the protein and voluminous vegetables, oils, those kind of things that keep you feeling satiated. So that would be strategically how I would go about meals. Then if you're in a position to do so, or to have a say, then I would be the person that does the shopping, because if you're able to do the shopping yourself, or at least have a say or have an influence over it, then you can determine what kind of sweets and treats there's going to be available. And if you can nip that in the bud and make sure that the things that you do have are less detrimental than they might otherwise be, then you've already sort of made progress before you've even had any of that stuff. So that would be a great way to get in right at the beginning. Then I would say, and this will be advice the whole way through, but even more so when there's going to be treats around, is stay hydrated. Make sure that you keep your water intake high, because there's going to be probably quite a lot of high sodium food that's going to make you feel thirsty anyway. But also, if you're staying hydrated, then it's going to keep you from reaching for the wrong things too many times. A lot of the time that when we're a little bit dehydrated or just need a drink, we confuse that with hunger and reach for the wrong things. So by staying hydrated, one, you're going to feel a little bit fuller, but also you're not going to reach for the wrong things as often. Then I would say, if you're going to be socializing and eating out, going out quite a lot, then I would make sure you eat your meals before you go out, for the same reasons. You don't want to go into a pub, bar, whatever you're doing, go around a friend's house and then be trying to make up calories or quelling feelings of hunger with alcohol and snacks. You might as well have your proper meal before you go out, because you've guaranteed your protein intake. Again, we're trying to protect muscle through this period as a priority from a health and fitness standpoint. So by getting your good meal in, going down the route of focusing on the proteins, and then going out and you can have a couple of drinks or whatever you're going to do, but you're not going to try to seek to quell feelings of hunger with alcohol. It's just a strategic way to go about things. And then I would say that if you're having nights in where you're going to be enjoying relaxing time, watching movies, watching Christmas specials, all that kind of fun stuff, playing board games, then reach for teas after you've had your main meal. Reach for warm drinks for that feeling of fullness and satiation before you go for your treats. If you have your treats after that, almost guarantee that you're going to be having less once you've had a warm drink. So some kind of tea, holy basil tea, chamomile tea, ginger lemon tea, those kind of things, red bush tea, whatever you decaf coffee, those kind of things, whatever you fancy. Then I would say, as a broad rule, walk every day. So start the day with a walk. At least you're guaranteeing some movement. You're going to be articulating your hips, your spine. It's good for your energy. And you're guaranteeing a little bit of a step count, a little bit of a calorie burn. And it's just good to be active every day. You don't want to have 3, 4, 5 weeks of inactivity sitting around. It's going to be fun time, but you don't want to a body that's starting to accumulate pain and stiffness to ruin the fun time. So just get out for a walk every day, and that's a great way to offset some of that. Then I would say, get short workouts in. So if you've got long workouts in your given training program and you're not going to have time, or you're going to need to train at home, you could put together a 10-minute sequence, just a body weight sequence or home workout equipment, dumbbells, those kind of things. But just having a workout maybe 2 or 3 times a week, unless you can follow your full plan, which would be great if you can. But if you can't, just a short workout structure really could help feel good and make all the difference. It doesn't have to be your full regime. You can make adaptations during this time. Again, it's just about not allowing anything ever to get to zero, ever again. You don't ever want to go to that 0 point again. And don't allow one thing not being completely 100% right to allow it to unravel the other elements of a program. And then, so what would be the tactics on how to see through Christmas Day? One, I would say, potentially just don't worry about it. Just write Christmas Day off and say it's Christmas Day. I just want to enjoy myself. But if you're not going to go down that route, one, because you just want to be sort of more diligent on your training program, or like we've discussed, it's a big part of your mental health. You want to stay out of pain physically, digestion wise, those kind of things. Or you just want to know that you didn't completely break your chain, so to speak, in terms of like consistently seeing through habits. Then the tactics for Christmas Day, I would say, would be skip breakfast that day because you know a big meal is coming. So, there isn't really traditionally Christmas breakfast food as such. It's more lunch and then dinner and all of those kind of things. So maybe the first time you eat that day is the main lunch, Christmas lunch, and that way you've got that working for you before before you've done anything else. I would also say get out for a walk. It's just lovely. It's always a nice afternoon Christmas walk. You see kids playing with their new toys, dogs out, and all of that kind of stuff. It's just a nice time. It's one of those sort of what we'll say like a hallmark moment. It's just nice to get out for a walk on Christmas morning. So do that if you can. And then drink water before the main meal. This is going to be the big meal, the big calorie intake. So just making sure that you're well hydrated before you have that big meal is a great thing to do. And then again, it's the same habits, but it's just a way to do Christmas Day as well. Have that warm drink after dinner before you reach for the wrong things or the potentially wrong things. Okay, so what would be the personal development opportunities during this period? I would say that so there's one thing. There's one thing that we can look at this period as how can we stop something going wrong, but then we can also look at this period as what do we stand to gain from this, or what is the potential here. So the opportunity here is the callback to the internal locus of control. You always want to be doubling down on your internal locus of control. If you can, look for opportunities where you can control things and you can make an active, conscious decision to say that you're going to see something through that is in your best interest. So that would be one thing, making sure that you're not allowing external circumstances or convention to mean that it's just going to get in the way of something that was important to you. If it was a priority to you at earlier times in the year and your goals remain the same, why would you let convention or somebody else's intentions for how you spend your time ruin that for you? Just explain to them that it's important to you and double down on what's going to be important to you without breaking rapport. It's easily done. It's just a conversation. And then I would say that there's an opportunity to cultivate character. So do things while they're the hardest. And then when things are easier, it'll be a no-brainer, right? It'll be completely easy to see something through. So right now, while the weather is cold, it's dark, it's raining, those kind of things, these are opportunities to see our training program through, to get out and do the walk, maybe even do some outdoor activity, those kind of things. If you can do it now, then it's going to be easy when the odds are stacked in your favor. When it's going to be spring and summer, that's going to be easy. So you can cultivate a lot of character. You can sharpen the sword, so to speak, during winter. And otherwise, it's one of those things where if you're relying on fortune to give you it's like it would be the equivalent of like waiting for all the lights to be green before going for a trip. So if you're relying on fortune to allow you to see your training program through, then you aren't really in control of it. So that's an external locus of control. So if you reach your goals, but the overarching programming has been that it's been an external locus of control, then that's fortune that's allowed you to get there. But if you can develop character by going through it when it's the hardest, then that's fortitude. And fortitude you get to keep. That way, when fortune isn't in your favor, the fortitude sees you through. And it's kind of a personal development opportunity here, because not everybody's going to be wanting to do this. It's going to be harder than it usually is. So that always represents an opportunity. Another way to look at that would be to develop this underdog mentality. That I don't know if you like boxing and those kind of things, but there is a boxer or a retired boxer, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is perhaps the best boxer ever. He would always have this mentality of he would go for his training runs and train 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning. And when people would say, "Why do you do that?" he would say, "Because I know my opponent isn't doing that." So it gave him a psychological advantage to pay the price of something when he knew that the person he was going to be facing wasn't willing to pay that price. It would be a psychological win before the physical fight ever happened. And like I say, you're not competing with anyone else. It's not the point. It's not really the focus of being on a health and fitness regime, but you can compete with your previous self. You could say last year, I wasn't doing anything in December. There's no way I would have been going out for a walk every day when it's this cold, those kind of things. But if you can say to yourself today, doesn't matter what I intended last night to go for a walk in the morning at 9 a.m. it's snowing outside, it's cold outside, it's -1, -2 outside. Still says that on the paper, go out for a walk at 9 a.m., right? The walk is still written down on that piece of paper. And if you can live your life like that from a health and fitness perspective and beyond, you're going to see the successful completion of your goals, because you're going to have that underdog mindset, and you're going to see everything through. Also, I would say that that is an opportunity to have a new frame of reference. It breaks the cycle. Maybe if December and Christmas has always been a period where you've put weight on, you've lost fitness, lost muscle mass, had poor digestion, had poor energy, then by doing it right this year, or by making a concerted effort to change that cycle, then you open up an opportunity to have a new frame of reference. Next year, you'll be saying, oh, I make a lot of progress in December. December's a time when I have less distractions and I double down on the things that are important to me. So again, it's throwing the questions back. It's throwing the opportunities back. How are you going to treat it? Are you going to practice damage limitation? That's fine. Are you going to take the time off? That's a decision. Are you going to use it as an opportunity to make more progress than usual, because it's an opportunity to cultivate character, because the circumstances are less favorable than they might be? And if we make progress, then we can make progress during any time. So it's just how we approach it. So I would say, in conclusion, where we want to be is the big take home is, don't get into that house of card effects where you just let one thing go wrong take you back to zero. You don't want that. That's the worst thing you can do in health and fitness, because that's when all the backward steps are made. So treat that as the absolute clear priority. We don't do that. But what we can do here is really the way I would say to look at this overall is something to reflect on, is who do you want to be on January 1st? Where do you want to be on January 1st? Do you want to be saying to yourself, oh, now I need to do something pretty extreme because I feel awful, I feel terrible, I've put weight on or put body fat on, those kind of things, lost muscle, lost performance? Or do you want to say, like, I feel pretty good, I made some serious or decent progress, so I just didn't take a backward step. So now we're going to approach January 1st with goals, not resolutions. And that might sound like semantics, but it's very different. If you approach January 1st with a resolution to sort of not do these things that are against your best interests anymore, that's a very different kind of energy and a very different kind of intention than saying, these are my new goals. And I'm in a position to set these goals because I worked on the previous goals. I didn't take a backward step. So now I'm at the point that I plan to be. When I thought to myself and I asked myself these questions in November, this is where I plan to be. And I am here on January 1st. And now I've got new goals for the next year, not a resolution to no longer feel this way because I made the wrong decision back in November. So yeah, I would leave it there, guys. That would be how I would approach Christmas. It's a personal decision. The extent to which you want to reflect on any of those and the way you take things will be a personal decision. But I wish you well. Like I say, it's not a case of not enjoying Christmas, not at all. It's just making sure that you're doing the things that are in your best interest. You can earn those moments of comfort by paying that price of a little bit of activity and a little bit of diligence and pre-planning. So have a wonderful period. And yeah, just let me know if you need anything at all, guys. Thank you.